Welcome in, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the PHNX Suns postgame show, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook app.
Welcome to the dive bar.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. Cracking one open already?
Yeah. A tall boy, too.
A tall boy of fucking liquid death. It's just fucking water.
That's a hard stop for me right now.
To be fair, I didn't know it was liquid death when I asked the question. I just heard the crack.
Oh, my God.
Which I don't blame any of you if you are cracking one open right now either, because that's 4 in a row. Y'all, the Phoenix Suns lose to the New Orleans Pelicans. Again, 129 to 124 this time in overtime. Let's get into it, gentlemen. Our 3 points of the game. Espo, would you like to start us off?
Sure. For me, it's 44-37. That is the Suns bench points to the Pelicans bench points. They showed heart tonight. This bench unit came out and won that fight by 7 points, a thing that we did not see on Friday night that they needed. And that's the reason this team was even in it at the end, that they could even go to overtime, was because of the heart and hustle shown by the bench.
Yeah, mine is points in the paint. On Friday, they were outscored 72-38 in points in the paint. Today, they still gave up 70 points in the paint, but they showed a lot more fight, and they put their money where their mouth was as far as attacking the rim. They got 64 points in the paint today. Unfortunately, it was tied at one point, 60-60, and right when the Pelicans kind of pulled away in OT, that's when they won the points in the paint battle. So against this team, that is a pretty good indicator of how well they're playing.
Mine is 12. That's the combined fouls for both DA and Chris Paul. It's just a lack of inconsistency from the officials continues to bite this team in the ass for whatever reason. DA's fouls from Valanciunas were just so ridiculous. I don't even know how to say it. And then if it weren't for a contested foul call on Zion Williamson, it's just so ridiculous how this is going. Like Zion can be so aggressive and the Suns can't be aggressive, and here we go. So it wasn't the only reason, but that was the one thing I wanted to talk about. So,
well, Saul, let's talk about your point first, because obviously, even though Chris Paul was a part of that overtime, not having DA and Chris Paul in there during the full overtime probably was not ideal for the Suns. Obviously, you don't want to ever go to overtime to begin with, but it would be nice to have 2 of your top players that are available to you in the game during that.
Yeah, listen, I thought, I know the chat is everybody's talking about get rid of James Jones and fire Monty and trade all your superstar. Like, I'm just not even close to there right now. I thought the first 2 games of this 4-game set were absolutely horrendous, and you had to look at yourself in the mirror and figure out what the hell you were all about. And even though they lost these 2 games in New Orleans, I'm not going to act like the end of the season is here by any stretch of the imagination. I thought they improved from one game to the next. I thought tonight they showed a lot of resiliency. Even when they were down, it looked like New Orleans was about to put that game away midway through the third. It looked like they were off and running, and then the Suns fought back, and they forced overtime. And, DA, I thought, was playing very good. You could argue about the fact that, once again, down the stretch of the fourth quarter, he had 5 fouls, so it took him a little bit longer to get back into the game. But once he did, they still didn't really try to run any actions for him. So, you could talk about that. But overall, I just thought, the 6 fouls, I don't say that in an effort to say that was the only reason by any stretch of the imagination. But I will say that, hey, when you're missing your 2 top players and you really only got one of your original starting 5 out there on the court at the end of the game, it makes it tough. Especially when Valanciunas is the one instigating a lot of that physical contact.
I blame some of this on DA and CP3, though. This wasn't a bad ref game. The Pelicans actually had more fouls than the Suns tonight. I don't think this was an egregious ref outing. I think this was a fact that in today's NBA, the bigger guy, the more physical guy is always going to get that call. It's not going to be, they don't really give it to the defensive guy because contact isn't allowed. EJ talked about that in the broadcast as well. And Chris Paul needs to understand the situation that he's in and how few guys that they have in general that can lead this team. And he has to be more aware of his foul situation. There were a few egregious plays where, Zion got running downhill and they didn't call things. But overall, this was not a ref problem.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, though, is like you have Zion, who obviously what he's all about. You know what he's going to do. And he's a runaway freight train, and he seems like he gets a lot more leniency when it comes to forcing contact than other guys do. Let's just be honest about that. Now, it's because from the very start of the game, he's a runaway freight train all the way until minute 48, so he kind of sets that tone. But again, I swear, Torrey damn near got killed out there, and if it weren't for a review, he wouldn't have got the call because they were going to call it against him.
But they called it on Jock.
I know, but Jock didn't even do anything. That's the thing is Zion's throwing that shoulder down, and they never call it. And, so I'm not saying it's the only reason. I said that from the very start.
I know.
But what I'm saying is like there's got to be a little bit of consistency when it comes to who is forcing and creating that contact. Not just you're seeing the back of player A right there in front of you, and because he flinches, it must be a foul on him because he's out of position. Like that's bullshit.
But the problem is you're playing a guy like a Torrey Craig that gives up so much size anyways that I think the refs are more likely to call it on a Torrey Craig than the bigger guy just because he is giving up so much. I think this is a flaw in the roster. We've talked about it. They don't have a big enough, physical enough guy to go against players, teams that have more than one big guy. If there's just one big center that DA can guard, fine. But when you got two big guys, they don't have any recourse. I mean, shit, they started Dario Saric tonight thinking that size might help, and it didn't.
I mean, it did at the start, but to your point, I think we're not giving enough credit, I think, to the Pelicans and the problems that they create, because honestly, Zion is very Giannis-esque in the way that he is hard to officiate because he will lower that shoulder, he will bulldoze guys, and he gets to the basket. And I think that's the frustrating part is there were some times where he lowered the shoulder and Craig was flying all over. That dude, I don't know how his body's not in shambles after today.
I mean,
I'm not going to lie. I looked at Torrey. I said to these guys, I was like, man, my guy's going through it right now because he looked like he was just getting his ass
He was getting trucked. And there was that one that you mentioned. They had the challenge to get the call. And the biggest one for me was the one where Valanciunas on back-to-back plays used the elbow to kind of create contact, clear. It was a foul on DA, which picked up his fifth, and then the very next one he did it again to Jock and got the offensive foul call. But that fifth foul on DA held him out till the 2-minute mark. So that was a big one. But again, the officiating for me wasn't they were down 28-17 in free throw attempts, but I feel like at this point we're kind of used to.
Well, that's a small margin compared to what they've been down other games.
Right. So it's again, the Pelicans are a hard team to officiate. They are physical. They are smash mouth, and they have two guys that are really good at kind of initiating a lot of contact, but being a little sneaky about how they do it.
I think you have to give Willie Green credit too. The way they use Zion, it isn't like they throw it to him on the block and then he bully balls.
Right.
They give it to him at the top of the key so he gains momentum before he winds up hitting into guys a lot of the times, which makes it a tougher thing to call as well. Because then it's okay, what's the positioning? Is it an offensive? Is it blocking? What's going on here? Because he starts and he gets to go downhill the way they have the offense set up. So I think that makes it a more challenging thing to call for the refs as well.
Yeah.
I refuse to give Willie Green credit.
Huh?
Nothing. Go ahead.
You don't want to give Willie Green credit?
No.
For nothing?
Nothing.
I mean, that's fair. You could be mad at Willie Green. I don't blame you. I would be a little upset at Willie Green right now. There are so many comments in the chat right now that people are very upset that we are not more upset.
That was Friday night for me.
I don't know about you guys, but I've reached the point of this 4-game losing streak. After I was a little bit upset on Friday, but for the most part, it started on Friday to the point where I just want to make fun of this team more than anything. And I know that no, it's not like I dislike them. It's just more like I'd rather make fun of the situation I just want to make jokes about it instead of be angry about it because I can't handle being angry about it.
Yeah, but
now.
But again, I listen, I'm not going to minimize the feelings that people have in the chat. They're pissed. And they're pissed because, listen, I think there's a bit of a complacency that you can perceive the Suns to have. And then you lose 4 in a row, and that complacency could quickly turn to despair. And that's what's happening across the chat right now. James Jones not making a big enough move for people, or any move really, with Jay Crowder. So you point to that. Then you start to deal with the injuries. Now Book's out. Like it's a tough sledding. But again, like, this is the NBA. Like, everybody goes through it. Like, these guys, the Pelicans are missing Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones. And Herb Jones is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and he gave us fits last year. So you just got to learn to get through it. This is a tough stretch of games for the Suns. It'll lighten up here in a little bit. They'll start to win games. Hopefully they can get some health back. They're going to be okay. I'm not going to overreact. But I will say that I'm concerned, and moves will need to be made soon.
I will say I am not 100% in agreement with you on they will be okay. Like, I will admit that. Like, there is a portion of me that is like, if you don't make a move, and if you have to deal with injuries whatsoever come playoffs, we might be in a little bit of trouble.
Well, I don't think any of us thought at the beginning of the season, as constructed, that this team was a championship contending team. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could say a championship contending team, but I don't think any of us thought that they would win a championship.
We knew that they were still a move away from cementing themselves in that tier. We knew that their starting 5 was good enough, but we had serious questions about the bench. And to be fair, the bench has played well, because you look at who they were closing the game with, and like Torrey Craig has been a great as a starter with Cam Johnson out, but he's not normally a starter. Cam Payne, same deal, filling in for Chris Paul. He did well especially for the first stretch of that, but he's not normally a starter either. Mikal was the only normal preferred starter that was closing this OT. So, like, I had way more of a problem with Friday's game because they got punked, because they didn't look like they cared as much, because they were taking issue with some shit that was irrelevant instead of what the biggest issue of the game was. Today, they showed more fight, and I know they didn't get the win, and it doesn't feel great losing 4 games for the first time. This is the first time they lost 4 consecutive regular season games since March of 2020.
Which is forever
ago. But, like, at the same time, they showed more fight. They were playing without their best player, without Cam Johnson. And the Pelicans are good, guys. Like, they're a really fucking good team. Yeah. And even without Brandon Ingram, like, Zion is playing at an MVP level. They have guys up and down the roster that contribute. Like, Dyson Daniels was great, and he's a rookie for them. So, like, this is a good... It's never good to lose, but this is a much better loss than Friday.
Yeah, I know you can't look at things in a vacuum, but say this kind of a loss comes after not a 3-game losing streak. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is a moral victory. Look, it shows the bench can do this. We're not as in trouble as we thought if guys are out. All this." But the fact that it comes as the 4th straight loss makes it look bad. But I was angry. I was livid on Friday, but what did we ask for? Mikal to step up, Deandre Ayton to step up, the bench to step up. Mm-hmm. All 3 of those things happened today. Yeah. I mean, Bridges had 27, Ayton had 28. The bench came up big. I can't be angry like I was on Friday at this game, because they did the things. They just didn't have the energy at the end to close it out in an overtime.
Yeah, we asked before the season if Chris Paul was going to drop off offensively. Those 2 guys had to step up. Mm-hmm. Now, we didn't account for Devin Booker being out in this one, because I think if he plays tonight, we probably win. But he didn't. And those guys did everything they could to keep us in the game. You just needed a couple extra pieces. Mainly, Chris Paul, really. When you look at the numbers, then it boils down to it. He didn't have the greatest of games. I think he had 6 points. And in a game like this where it's just, it's physical, you need every point you could possibly get. You need your stars to play like stars, or at least somewhat high level scoring. So it's just, that's the frustrating part. And I see it in the chat right now.
Right. And I want to address that in the chat, because 4 straight losses is not okay, obviously. And we've expressed our concerns about the ceiling of this current iteration of the team, especially because A, Chris Paul hasn't looked like Chris Paul for the majority of this season. B, we don't know if Cam Johnson is reliable. And C, you've still got Jay Crowder sitting at home and haven't been able to make a move. But as we've said, December 15th is when a lot more guys become trade eligible. That is when we need to see a move, around that time. Like, I need to see something happen with this roster. But this loss is not the one that upsets me out of the last 4. No. This is the one that I'm least concerned about, because at least they played physical. At least they gave a shit today. They showed us that they cared. Like,
can we stop selling December 15th like there's going to be something magical that happens? Because I feel like this is another one of these.
It needs to happen around then.
Well, I get that it needs to, but I think we've built this up again as another magical thing that, the move is coming here. And I feel like we've been doing this for a year and a half since the trade deadline in that final season. The big move that's going to be the move that makes it work's going to happen here. Then it was the offseason. Then it was another trade deadline. Now it's December 15th. I don't think some magical huge trade is coming. I think you're going to see things around the margins if James Jones can get it done. But look, 4 losses isn't okay because how long is Devin Booker out? If he's out a week, 2 weeks, that could become 8 losses. That could become 10 losses in a row if you're not careful. And that's the kind of thing that puts you too far back in the pack. All of a sudden, you're back in the middle of the West, which then puts you in play-in territory if you can't make that up. And that's the worst place to be in this Western Conference because it's so damn deep.
Well, I know the super chat contradicts what you just said, Espo, about that December 15th date, but Jeff, thank you for your super chat. Jeff says, something just tells me that December 15th date has JJ planning something big. Also, Saul, could we get Tommy Lloyd to come and teach these guys how to be tough?
Yeah, I'll put in a call.
Maybe not.
Look, Santa ain't bringing the trade in the sack this year, all right?
Something will happen. And December 15th is more just a few more guys become available. More teams are willing to have conversations now. Like Gerald said multiple times, open the door for maybe 3-team kind of deal.
It's like something like 85% of the league, right?
Yeah.
89, I think. It went from like 78 to 89.
Yeah, there's like 70
that.
some guys I think that become trade eligible at that point.
Look, and we'll get more into trades tomorrow, but if the Suns can't trade a first-round pick that like it keeps getting reported because of the ownership stuff, they're going to get jumped in the line for a lot of people because that's the asset people want.
You better hold on to your hats because it's going to get a lot worse and we're going to get a lot more angry if that actually is the case. Lord have mercy.
Or at the worst, somebody's going to give us a first-round pick for Jay Crowder and call it a day.
That ain't happening.
I don't know about that.
Ain't no way anybody's giving up a first for Jay Crowder.
Or they're going to, if somebody's going to want him,
desperate enough,
somebody's going to want him.
Yeah, they're not giving up a first for an expiring contract on a guy that hasn't played since last May.
Couple more super chats. Manny, thank you for yours. Said, I'll take the L on this one, Suns fam. I stopped watching in the third and we came back. Then I started watching at the start of OT and we lost. I apologize. We
Never
forgive you, Manny.
Watch again, Manny. Just
tough.
tune into us and don't watch the game.
And then Frank, thank you for your super chat, Frank. Frank said it's time to open up that box of 4 peaks.
Hey.
So today is the day you actually get to open the advent calendar.
Is this my guy Frank Kaminsky in the chat?
What is it?
We got number 11.
Ooh.
What is it?
This is Cooper Dance, Brick and Barrel, Wood Age, Small Batch.
Okay.
Rye Whiskey. Barrel.
I like that logo, that label.
It's really cool.
That's
It's
super
really
nice.
pretty. Oh, yes.
Oh. Awesome.
Okay, so this 4 Peaks Advent Holiday Cheer Box is really cool. It's $55 and it's got specialty beers, tall boys, and more. And it's each day for the month of December. Obviously, we know it's the 11th, but don't worry, you can always catch up on your off
really
days.
nice.
Does it smell good?
When there's the 5th straight loss, you can go through all 24
That's what
if
I'm
you'd
saying.
like.
You could still you could honestly just start it any day of the week and start with number 1 and keep going through January. It doesn't matter, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It also makes a really cool gift. And if you guys would like to check it out, 4 Peaks has a limited supply of them and you can pick them up at their 8th Street pub down in Tempe. But remember, you do have to be 21 years or older, and we ask that you enjoy responsibly. Also, let's go ahead and just get this one out of the way and name our DraftKings King of the Game. I know these are never as exciting on games that we drop, but we got to give a little bit of love to Deandre, and who is our King of the Game. DA came out today and seemed like he took this one a little bit more personally. He finished with 28 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. Of course, he did get fouled out in this one, but we even said in the pregame, if you're if you want to have feisty defense, you have to be able to use up all your 6 fouls and just be okay with that kind of a thing.
This is the saddest looking king of the game photo ever.
I do
He's
like
just gazing off into the distance.
I do appreciate the crown placement. On
Oh, it
this
is
one,
good.
Though. It's very good crown placement.
He is glistening in this photo. He looks like a Apollo Creed.
Yeah,
the way he's all oiled up.
Look, but we've been demanding DA, be the man in a lot of these cases, and he did it tonight. I mean, you can't complain about what he gave you this evening. He did it all. He was physical, and he just happened to get those 6 fouls, and that's just unfortunate, but played his ass off tonight.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, he was efficient. This is back-to-back 25-plus point games for him. He plays really well against Valanciunas in this Pelicans team, so we talked about it before the show. I wanted to see DA and Mikal step up. And they both did today, but DA was hands down the best player on the Suns roster today.
I loved the energy that DA played with. He was aggressive. He didn't just give up the rebounds. He forced the Pelicans to have to box him out. He made them work just as much as they tried to make him work. I just thought defensively he was sound. He blocked Zion at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had a couple very, very nice plays tonight. And the jumper. Man, hey, the jumper is looking more and more wet every single game. It's beautiful to watch. I'm telling you, like, I know it's a little hard right now to swallow these 4 losses, but I think what we've seen over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks is DA starting to be a lot more assertive, a lot more confident and not hesitating on taking those jumpers and recognizing more than anything else what the defense is giving him. And him being able to take advantage of those opportunities, which is what you need to see your stars do. If he can keep that up, it replaces what you're missing in Chris Paul. And again, like at this point, in my estimation, the Suns will be very well served if they just manage Chris Paul as a facilitator and not a necessary scorer, and they add the pieces, hopefully via trade, that will bolster up the scoring side of things, because I think defensively they're going to be fine. But offensively, that's where you need the help the most. So, if DA can step up and Mikal can be consistent, and then Cam comes back, you're going to be okay. But you still need that one other piece. And that's what I appreciate, that we're recognizing that, because we're seeing what the potential of DA can be on a game-to-game basis. Without that, you don't know what levels to go in terms of the assets that you might try to have to go out and get. So now that you can see this, and it's been a little bit more consistent over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, now you can kind of better set yourself for the expectations on a return off of a trade.
Can I name a secondary DraftKings king of the game?
Sure.
I think Torrey Craig deserves
Yeah.
a lot of credit. 5 of 10 for the field, 14.7 rebounds, and gave up every part of his body and energy tonight. There was not a guy that worked harder out there on the floor. He played 36 minutes, which was the second most out of anybody, and there were a few times where it looked like he felt like he was going to die, and he still found more inside of him to keep going. So hats off to Torrey Craig.
I mean, both of those guys, Torrey Craig and DA, did their best as far as guarding Zion. Obviously, we knew we don't have the guy who can really stop Zion. I don't know if there is a guy, maybe Giannis, who can stop Zion, right? Which those two going head to head would be kind of fun. I feel like would be fun to watch. I'm gonna have to tune into that one. But they did a good job. They showed effort. They showed heart. They showed hustle. Torrey Craig literally was like bleeding at one point during this game because of how physical it got. So some flowers for the two of them for sure. We got a couple of super chats I'll get to in a second. But first, let me tell you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Right now, if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and you sign up with the code PHNX, you can place a $5 pregame moneyline bet on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code PHNX only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Okay, a couple more super chats here. First and foremost, Trevor, thank you for your super chat. Trevor said, watched Boston and Golden State last night, and Jason Tatum was struggling. ESPN was praising him. Jeff said, I love to see good players struggle, but when Book struggles, they just criticize him. ESPN hates us. BS. I think
We should just get used to Jason Tatum is a media darling, and he's really fucking good. So like he's earned that. It's unfortunate Book doesn't get the same treatment for whatever reason. But Tatum's been playing at an MVP level. He's probably number 1 on the MVP leaderboard. So, and he plays for Boston, and we know how the NBA loves Boston and LA when it comes to these franchises. So it's probably just something we're gonna have to get used to. And especially because like we were, at least coming into this season, we were wrong as far as saying Book should be higher than Tatum on all these lists and whatnot. Tatum has earned his spot above Book in this conversation for the time being.
I think up until this last week, you could have made an argument that they were
neck and neck,
fairly close.
You still would have put Tatum above.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I don't think right now it feels like there's a chasm between the two of them because of how poor Devin played before the injury in those 3 games, and now the injury question is going to loom. But I agree. Look, it's big cities, it's big markets, it's heritage team with Boston. That's always going to be the case. They want the LAs, the Bostons, even the Phillies to a certain extent to get the attention. If New York ever had anybody that had a pulse, they'd go nuts over whoever on the Knicks showed any spark of life. So
I mean,
it's just
they
the way
went,
this is
they went
always
crazy
gone.
for Alfred Payton last year. So.
Well, shit. I mean, Julius Randle got a lot of talk last year when he was playing well, just because he was in New York in part. So yeah, it's just the way of life. At this point, we've screamed enough about it, and it's not going to change.
It's just yeah.
That's why you can come hang out with us. Brandon also sent us a super chat. Brandon, thank you for your super chat. Said the real failure is on CP3. He neglected to show.
Look,
Are you guys frustrated with Chris Paul's play?
I agree somewhat with that, but I like he hit the shot to force overtime. He was only 3 for 10 though. So I don't know. I think we need to reckon with the possibility that this is how the Suns want to play, because like you were talking about with seeing what we have with DA, that applies to Mikal as well. And that requires someone to take a step back, which we were talking about heading into the season, how Chris Paul needs to take a step back. We need him to hit some damn shots for sure, because 3 for 10 is not going to cut it. But like he's still facilitating. He had 11 assists, and that's more of what they want him to do. And again, if we're trying to explore what we have in DA, unfortunately, he still is not at the point of his career where he is creating a lot of his own offense. He needs someone to facilitate to him to feed DA, like we always talk about. So you need Chris Paul out there for that, because your backup guard campaign struggles with that at times.
I think we're at a point where you have to consider, is point guard one of the places you look to try to add depth in as well. Like I love campaign, but I think he could play off the ball if you got a guy that could help facilitate with that second unit and be a backstop on nights that Chris Paul might not have it, because I think this is what we're going to see consistently inconsistent this year from Chris Paul based on age and all that. So one night you may see him drop 22 and dominate and look like Chris Paul last year, and then you'll see a game like this afternoon. So at some point you need to figure out ways to make up for that, get creative with that, because I don't think you can pencil Chris Paul in as that guy anymore.
As an old man myself, I can attest to what Espo is saying, because it's like, some days you wake up, you're like, oh man, joints feel pretty good. I got a little spry in my step. Let's go. And then other days you're like, fuck my life. Like, I don't know. So I can't even imagine being his age and playing in the NBA. And every day it's basically a crapshoot. You don't know what your body's going to feel like. You don't know how your body's going to respond and what moves you're going to be able to pull off. And when I look at Chris Paul, I think facilitating is much easier than creating your own shot and creating your own scoring opportunities at this point. I don't think that's a stretch to say that, but he will have good games every now and then, like he did the other night. Scoring wise, he was just fine. But tonight, they needed a little bit more from him, and he wasn't able to provide it. And it's, I just think that this is what Chris Paul's going to be. Hopefully, by the end of the season, and we get close to the playoffs, maybe a month out, he can turn it on and be that former Chris Paul that we liked. But
not him.
But for 25 games now, this is what he's been. He's been an okay scorer. and he's been a great distributor.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, come on. I know that like Chris Paul is not great right now, but and Booker's going through a rough stretch, but holy shit, running the offense through Ayton over Book and CP3 is.
That's not the end. In a night like tonight, they tried. I mean, they did run a lot of the offense through DA, but it was the only choice. I mean, Book's not there and Chris wasn't hitting, so you had to go that way.
I think when Chris Paul's back, or not Chris Paul, Devin Booker's back, you'll never, ever, ever not run through Devin Booker. Like that's never going to happen.
This basketball suicide.
Chris Paul as an option on offense right now, yeah, I think he's fallen down the notch in terms of priority. I think it's Devin Booker, and then it goes DA
but
for sure.
But they don't run the offense through Chris Paul. Like he's just the point guard running the offense. Like there's a difference, and running offense through DA looks like Chris Paul coming around a screen and looking for DA. It looks like some of the actions they ran late in the fourth quarter that are designed to get DA rolling to the basket where he's most efficient. The Pelicans covered it well, and Damian Lee had that kick out to Mikal Bridges, but Larry Nance made a great defensive play. Like they were running it through DA tonight, but you are never going to convince anyone that a top 10 offense with a top 10 player like Book should not be the guy that they're running their offense to. That's crazy talk.
I will say this. I don't know if I'm a big fan of the 2-guard lineup when it comes to like right now. Obviously, Devin Booker's out, but I've seen it multiple times, even when Devin Booker has been healthy, that they'll run out CP3 and Campaign at the same time playing on the court. Why? Like in my opinion, like why? Because Chris Paul is an off the ball player is not effective. Is not effective. The only way he's effective on your team is if he's facilitating and getting other guys the ball in key positions. Other than that, as a shooter, no. Like just no.
You know, if there's one person tonight that I think you could, and I know a lot's fallen at his feet lately, but that's what happens when you lose. Monty, why you've got DA struggling with fouls here? Why does Ish or Busy not see any minutes? Just even if it's you go take a few of these fouls when Zion's rolling, get DA a breather, bring him back in, or play him alongside of DA, let him guard Zion. Anything to try to. I still just don't understand. The starting of Dario. And
it worked for the first quarter.
I would have liked, but
it worked well in the first. They were up 7 in the first quarter. Like that wasn't the problem. It was in the second half. I would have liked to see Ish, and Busy. Like he's talked about it. It's hard for him to play 3 bigs in any game, and Jock Landale was playing great. So like I don't mind not seeing Busy. Ish, I would have liked to see when the Dario minutes were falling off in the second half.
Yeah,
try something different. But I understand people have issues with Monty right now and like the timeouts thing, not having a timeout late in that game, but not having the timeout. Chris Paul hit the shot that forced overtime, and like look at the roster, guys. Like we're all sitting here like Monty should do this and Monty should do that. There's not a lot to do with the roster currently the way it is. Like
I would counteract your point about DA. I want DA to play as many minutes as possible. And I know he picked up 6 fouls tonight. And some of them could have been avoided or some of them were just back calls. But I want to see him out there. And I don't really want to defer to him going to the bench to get a rest when I want DA to start playing 34, 36, 38 minutes a game like Chris Paul and Devin Booker have been doing the last couple of years. DA needs to get to that point. Otherwise, he's never going to reach the potential we need him to reach in order to do anything in the playoffs.
I'm fine with keeping him on there, but then just bring in Ish so he can focus on Zion and play DA on the other big in that situation, and just let Ish take a few of those fouls. Like I know it's not perfect. I know he has to. I mean, we're talking about a 2-way contract guy, but I mean, when DA is the primary force on your offense right now, and you're that deep in it. Once you see him get in foul trouble, you got to try to get creative, right?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's nitpicky. I admit that, but this game came down to little things. So
yeah, it did. And again, like that 5th foul was a tough call on DA, and they didn't bring him back till the 2-minute mark. So it wasn't. If anything, I think Monty might have waited a little too long to bring him back in, and they were trying to get him in.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to use a timeout, which they wound up using later anyway. So Yeah, it's just one of those things where little things stand out, but overall, like, they lost an overtime game to the number 1 team in the West without Devin Booker and without Cam Johnson. Like, I'm much more comfortable with the effort that they gave today than I have in the last week. So
for sure.
It's still a loss, but at least we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, Daniel in the chat said, as a fan base, we get way too high when we're winning and way too low when we're losing. Yeah. The ebbs and flows of the season will always be there.
Right.
That's absolutely true, Daniel. We do need to remember that. And it doesn't mean that we can't be frustrated or we can't celebrate in these high and low moments. It's just you have to kind of keep a little bit of perspective. You know, like when we're on a 4-game losing streak and we've been playing like straight up boo-boo, don't throw out that we need to trade Devin Booker and DA and Chris Paul and Mikal Bridges all at the exact same time for like one player. You know what I mean? Like you just be like, I'm angry. That's fine. But we
got damn spoiled.
Keep your head on your shoulders a smidge.
We did.
We did.
Spoiled. Like the fact that we haven't seen 4 losses in a row since before the bubble, we were spoiled. This happens in the NBA. Now, the way 2 of those games went is not the way that it usually happens. And I think that's been a bigger issue than the 4 games in a row. But this does tend to happen. I mean, look at Golden State at the beginning of last year. They weren't world beaters. Yeah, but they won the title last year, and they weren't world beaters, and then got it together in the second half. It's December, I guess.
Right, and that's the thing, though, is that we got people in the chat saying the Pelicans had starters out too. We know, we acknowledge that off the top of the fucking show. Like, catch up. But the point is, you need to have people on the bench that like can fill in when you have guys out. And last year they did that. They were great at handling injuries. This year it's piled on a little bit more, and they haven't been able to handle that.
I feel like the rest of the league kind of went through these injury riddled seasons, and we kind of avoided it for the most part for the last couple of years. And now, we're regressing to the mean. So it's like, all right, we got to figure it out just like everybody else did. And honestly, like to your point, Espo, the Warriors this year, started off terribly. But you can see that they're starting to put the pieces back together, starting to get back into a groove. I have no doubt that the same thing will happen with the Suns. At some point, you'll figure it out. You'll adjust. You'll understand like what your team is truly capable of, and the guys that need to step up will step up. I have no doubt about this team. I don't know if I'm just maybe that drink just got me fucking jacked up, but I don't know. I'm unusually confident in the fact that they're going to bounce back.
Are you sitting comfy right now?
Yeah, because of this, this more furniture is fantastic.
Is it fair to say you're just sitting comfy?
Yeah.
Like you're comfy with your team?
Before you get down the road on this, folks, something is different about Lindsay. Tell me what it is.
She got leg extensions since pregame.
Yeah, so we're sitting okay, you guys. Like, does it suck? Yes. It's the end of the world? No. We're going to be okay. The Suns do need to look themselves in the mirror and have a good, long, hard conversation amongst themselves about getting back on the right track and playing like a basketball team that we have gotten used to. And we saw a little bit more of that tonight. So hopefully this is the start of turning the corner. But we're also sitting pretty comfy, literally right now, in these chairs for more furniture. And they're having a holiday clearance event. And it's happening literally right now. And you can save up to 50%. So make sure that you check them out at morefurniture.com. That's morfurniture.com. Or you can stop by their store locally here in Phoenix. Did anybody guess it right?
No, just people say glasses. It's not glasses.
That's just a lazy.
True,
the glasses are.
Oh, Frank.
No, that's not true either.
Frank wins.
Yeah,
is it a different color?
It is a different color.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, she said it earlier.
It's a different color, and it's a different material and a different shape beanie. It's all completely different. That's it. Right. And not a single one of these little turkeys mentioned my beanie today. It's like if I had walked in here and gotten a brand new haircut, they wouldn't have even noticed.
No, it's like you got like an inch trimmed and we didn't notice. That's what this is. It's not like you just went scorched earth and went bald all of a sudden. We were like, Wonder what's different with Lindsay.
I got a
Yeah.
slightly different
Trend
colored
too.
beanie, and it has different material, and you didn't
It's a
notice.
different pattern. I'm sorry, I don't stare at your beanie
My wife
24/7.
could dye her hair
You
blonde, and I
literally
wouldn't
said
notice.
last week, can we get a new beanie? I'm tired of this beanie. I
Just
just
the
want a
other one
new one.
smelled,
And
I
then I
guess.
go get a new beanie. And
Thank
don't
you,
even
Esmo. It's
notice
because
it.
the other one smelled. My bad.
I just love it. We have worked together long enough now that Lindsay's like, if you don't notice every little
I
thing
know.
I've changed,
I was like,
we got problems,
listen,
okay?
I have to deal with this shit at home with my wife. I am not coming here and doing this with you.
Candid Cam said, is she being serious? No, Candid Cam, I'm not. It's sarcasm. Sorry if that you couldn't tell.
You know what's not
clearly,
sarcastic, though?
Well, what?
The underdog fantasy.
Oh my god!
I was going to do the same thing, but a little different.
Only serious when it
We're
comes
on
to
the
that.
same page.
Because you can win cash, and there's nothing sarcastic about cold, hard cash. One of my favorite apps. I've gotten
It's
I've
all
gotten into
digital.
it.
I like how he says cold hard cash. I'm like, I've never seen anything that was like cold hard cash in my hands.
You don't take out cash out of the ATM to,
I can't even remember when the last time I did that.
I do sketchier things than you, apparently. Anyway, so
Do tell us.
Yeah, what are you doing?
can't talk about that. We're talking about
Spill the tea.
the Underdog Fantasy app right now. I love it because, like I've talked about in
cold
this
hard cash because
program,
it comes from a
I
cadaver.
am I'm stealing money. This is not where Underdog Fantasy app. Let me tell you about it. If you suck at your fantasy leagues because you're too lazy to actually look at your lineup week in, week out, like yours truly, Underdog Fantasy is perfect. You can play 1 week, don't have to worry about it. You draft your guys, all of them play. You see who wins, and then you win money if you actually win. I had a pretty good streak going on the fantasy show. I had won 3 in a row. I'm going to lose this week. Shane had a good week. But, it's a fun way to make money. I love their pick'em, too. Higher, lower on categories. If you get 5 right, you get 20 times your money. It is spectacular. And if you use that promo code PHNX and you deposit $100, I believe they're going to match that up to $100 there in your account. So go do it.
That's
have some
facts.
fun. Win some cold, hard cash and do shady shit yourself.
Yeah, you can play with your friends. You can play it by yourself. Espo likes to play with himself all the time, so it's fun.
God,
So about those points in the paint, Gerald.
That's how I get my cold, hard cash.
We haven't really touched on that just yet. So I feel like maybe we should dive into that a little bit more because you had mentioned early on in the game that they were pretty even. They were much closer than they were in Friday night's game, but then obviously the Suns weren't able to maintain that throughout the game. What stood out to you about the way that the Suns played tonight versus Friday in that specific area?
Well, look, and this is something I wrote about yesterday after the Friday loss, is that the Suns fall into this pattern of when they answer questions about their low free throw attempts, they always say like, we could talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it. And then they talk about it at length, and they talk about how they bring up the numbers, and they talk about we're paint to great. We get in the paint just as much as any other team, blah, 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 without acknowledging the fact that they're 29th in frequency of shots at the rim. So like tonight, they lived up to that. They got in the paint. They forced contact. I know they only got to the line 17 times, but they were a lot more aggressive in attacking the rim and actually not just settling for a mid-range pull-up or for a floater or for, some wild, crazy shots. Like they were going to the basket, and that's what we need to see from them. Like the Pelicans are a damn good points in the paint team, and I think they were basically tied with them by the end of regulation. So like they need to be better on the defensive end because again, 129 points. It's a lot to give up even with overtime, but they had 64 points in the paint. Like this is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see more physicality. I wanted to see more fight, and they did show it today. And that was kind of the one stat that stood out to me. And of course, in overtime, it skewed the Pelicans' way, and that's part of why they lost.
Can I ask the question that I don't think anybody wants to say out loud? Is Devin part of the problem why they don't get to the rim as much?
Lately, yes. And I think it speaks to how much of the burden he's had to carry on offense. Because to start the season, for the first month or so, he was attacking the rim a lot more than he used to, or that we've seen in recent seasons. And then he kind of settled into pulling up for threes, pulling up for mid-range jumpers, trying to bait for fouls there instead of getting to the basket. it's a lot harder to keep driving to the basket and accepting that kind of physical punishment when you are tired, when you're playing 35, 38, 40 minutes a night. So I hope that when he comes back and that he's 100%, he's able to get back to that. Because today I think they showed more of a downhill mentality. They showed like, we don't want to be punked anymore. And that kind of showed up in the points in the paint.
Mikal did this great tonight. And it seems like when he has big offensive nights, it's because he's going downhill more often. He had a couple of those nice layups where he does that big pull over of his arm when he comes across the leg, across the lane, and lays it in. So I think that in part was part of it too. You saw Mikal be aggressive in slashing to the basket, which they need if they're going to win the points in the paint battle.
It was a good balance from him tonight for sure. He was driving early, and I think that helped kind of bust the lid off the rim for him, because he hit 5 threes tonight as well.
Well, yeah, because they got the defense has to be honest on him then in that case. So.
And then, Espo, you brought up bench points. I know we've talked a little bit about the bench points tonight, but one of the things I've seen in the chat a lot tonight was people asking why we haven't talked about Campaign's play as of late. Obviously, Campaign led in bench scoring tonight. He finished with 17 points, but he was 6 of 14 from the field, so just under 50% there.
Yeah.
But how do you kind of feel Campaign's been? We haven't talked about it since Chris Paul's come back. Obviously, it's only been a couple of games, but moving back into that bench, we were a little bit, I don't know, has concern maybe, or just had questions about what his performance would be like when he moved back to that bench role.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to figure things out again, right? We've talked about how the mentality is different when you start as opposed to coming in off the bench. I mean, the way you warm up, all those things change. So I think he's trying to ease back into it. But let's be honest, Campaign is inconsistent. So this isn't necessarily surprising when he has a night that he shoots like this. I mean, at least he scored tonight. He may not have shot 50 or above, but he had 17 points. So I'm not going to complain when he gets buckets, in some fashion. But overall, the bench just showed up, did what they needed to do, hustled, showed heart. Damian Lee didn't have a great shooting night either. He was 4 of 11, but got 12 points. And Jock came in with those 8 points off the bench. Landry Shamet had 3 steals as well that helped lead to some bench points. This unit did enough tonight. That's all you can ask, because they're depleted too when you got guys starting and you're running into your third string guys to play bench minutes. So they did what we asked the other night that they didn't do.
And I think with Campaign, it's alarming. He had that one really good stretch that helped kind of get them back in the game. He was a little inconsistent, and they need to get him back to that place of consistency like we've been talking about. Because if you look at the last 8 games, he shot 4 for 13, 2 for 10, 3 for 10. He had the one good game against Houston where it was 8 for 12. And then it was 2 for 8, 4 for 16, 5 for 13, 2 for 6. Like, he's been going through it lately. And they need him, because they've only had Chris Paul back for 3 games now. They need him to be a source of offense and just a steady guy off the bench. I don't know if he's going to be that this year, because we saw it wasn't him last year. But they've got to get something out of him. Tonight he was better in helping them kind of close that gap after they were falling behind.
I'll say this: it's an issue when Damian Lee is more consistent offensively than your backup point guard.
Right.
And I've been a defender of Campaign and his abilities for the most part since he's been here. But just like with Mikal and DA, you have to be consistent. And he gets plenty of open shots. He gets plenty of opportunities to be able to score at a high level. He should be an easy 12 to 14 point a game scorer every single game, because he has that many opportunities and that many shots, but he doesn't. And it's very inconsistent. And I think at this point right now, you seriously, like Espo mentioned earlier, you seriously got to take a look and see if a backup point guard, somebody in the league that you think can come in and contribute and possibly maybe even supplant Chris Paul in the future. If there is a guy out there that's like that, I don't think there is.
There was in the
Yeah,
draft.
Gerald,
I know.
I'm sorry.
Not right
I'm
now.
sorry.
I
I'm
know.
sorry. Tyrese Halliburton is putting up numbers that only like Steve Nash and Chris Paul have. It still hurts my heart to watch him.
Us too,
Right.
Gerald,
If it makes you
us
feel
too.
any better, I think about 100% of the Suns fans were clamoring for Tyrese Halliburton. So this isn't exactly a D.A. Luka thing,
Right.
because nobody even knew who the fuck Jalen Smith was.
Yeah,
Nobody.
That was a tough one.
So when they pulled him instead of Tyrese, everybody was like, huh?
Thanks,
What?
James.
I still believe to this day they would have won a championship in either of the last 2 years. I don't know which one, but in one of the last 2 years, they would have won a title if they had just drafted Tyrese Halliburton.
May I address the Pelicans fans in the
Real
chat
quick,
for a
can I
second?
just ask one question
Yes.
that nobody wants me to ask on this panel right now?
Jesus
Oh, boy, here we
Christ.
Are we the problem? Because Campaign came on our show and then just went poo right off the edge.
No.
Did we
No.
do that?
No.
Is that
No.
us?
No.
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 I'm
Yes.
just messing.
That's-
Lindsay, no.
Blasphemy. Why would you even
Cut
suggest
this
such a
clip
thing?
and send it to Cole over at the Suns.
Oh, God.
I'm just kidding. I just wish Campaign. I think when the offense is one thing as well, but I also think the passing is another thing that I would like to see him kind of clean up a little bit more and also do a little bit more of.
Mhm.
I just want Campaign to be a little bit better all around, and hopefully we'll get that back from him. Go ahead, you could do the Pelicans.
First off, we've asked that from
I know.
Campaign.
But we
every
did get
year.
it for a while.
It comes in spurts.
When he starts,
Yeah.
when he goes to the bench, he has a rougher time with it because I think that the spacing is not quite as good with the bench unit. And he's a guy that likes to get downhill. If he doesn't have that spacing, the passing's at like 3 assists, 5 assists, 3 assists since Chris Paul came back. He hasn't played very many minutes, but
But that's where they need more shooting as well in that
Right.
second unit.
They need more just overall production. I mean, the assists. I'm not even going to say anything about that because obviously Chris Paul can handle his own there. But just overall production, that could use a pick me up.
Can I address the Pelicans fans
Yes,
that
but
are
just
have,
be
have
nice.
invaded?
We
No,
need-
I'm
we
going.
need more
I'm going to.
kindness
This is
around these
actually
parts.
this is actually more advice,
Mm.
having been in the spot that they're in,
yeah.
Okay.
than anything. Right? Look, the Pelicans have been the better team the last 2 weeks. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
The Pelicans look very good, but coming in and getting too cocky when you have a guy like Zion who coming into this year only played 85 games, don't piss off the basketball gods. That's all I'm saying because I have experience in that.
And
So don't piss them off.
never chant Pels and 4 in
Okay,
a playoff
Don't
Oh,
do
yeah,
that.
don't ever do
Don't
that.
chant don't scream
To
the
be
Pels
fair,
are the
that,
best team
that
in the
wasn't
NBA.
really our fault.
No, it was. And I wanted to
kind
address
of
this
our
too
fault,
because
I
we got
guess.
the Chris Paul sucks chant going.
Oh, I love that.
And that was in the playoffs after they chanted "fuck Chris Paul."
No, Jay Crowder, right?
Jay
I mean,
Crowder.
he kind of put your franchise on the map. Like, I get it was a long time ago, but shit.
Well,
man.
that's because most of these fans have only been around for the last 6
Yeah,
months.
once they drafted Zion.
So they don't remember that Chris was there back
there's-
when they were the Hornets.
If you thought we weren't going to give a little bit of shade,
Gotta give a
my
little
God,
one
just a
there.
little bit.
I don't know. I just like have your fun, but also you don't have to be like overly mean about it.
Yeah. Whatever. Hey, right
I'm
now,
not just saying just to us. Like you just don't have to be a
Yeah.
dick. Like you could
He
have
said-
fun and poke
He
fun at
said,
people.
"Flock
without being
around
a
and find
jerk."
out."
That's kind of funny.
Killer X, that's funny.
look, right now, one of the Pelicans fans in the chat said the Suns are the most overrated team in the NBA. At this moment, yeah. They haven't proven it in the last 4 games. The last 2 weeks have not been good. The thing about this show is you can come in and we'll be honest when it needs to be honest. They haven't been that great, right? The Pelicans own them in the last few games. But you guys still haven't been out of the first round in forever. You still got a guy that only played 85 games. Just keep perspective because it can swing real quick, and we know that here.
You guys
True.
are so sassy. Also, if you want us to talk about the kerfuffle at the end of Friday afternoon's game, go watch the pregame show. We've been there. We've done that. You just missed out. So just go watch that one next. Real quick, I do want to remind every Suns fan listening right now that we are having another event of the PHNX Suns crew. We want you to join us at our inaugural PHNX Tea Party at Dobson Ranch Golf Course. This is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. It's Friday, January 13th. It tips off at 5:30. We have the entire driving range rented out. So it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's like going to Topgolf.
Yeah, but with Suns fans, and then you get to watch the game too.
Yeah, and we're all going to compete against each other. There'll be prizes for like longest drive. We have a putt competition. We have a 3-point shootout competition as well if you want to get in on that. There's just a whole bunch of giveaways. We have all our partners are going to be out there. It's going to be a fun-ass time. Come enjoy yourself. If you have kids that are 10 and under, we're putting on a free kids clinic so they can go have fun with the instructors, and you can go drink your ass off underneath the bays, nice and heated. It's at night. You use the Shot Tracer Pro technology, just like you see on the PGA Tour.
What?
It's going to be
Shot
awesome.
Tracker Pro?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm going to know where my ball went
Yes,
30
bro.
feet in front of me. Thank God.
You can click the link in the description to reserve your spot right now. And for all of our diehards out there, check the Discord for the special link where you can save up to 20% on this event. If you're a diehard, you get discounts on everything. You get discounts on every event, all of our merch, all the things. So, and access to the Discord, which I think is one of the top parts in my opinion. So yeah, come join us. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun, and we want you to be there for it.
And we're looking at a diehard only Discord event on Wednesday. We'll give you more details tomorrow, but we're looking at that as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be a blast. Also, since the Pelicans come back into town on Saturday, I think because I've seen the Pelican fans in the chat and the Suns fans in the chat going at it right now about who is selling more tickets to their games. And I don't know why that has become an argument that is being had, but it's being had in the chat. And all I want to tell you is right now on the Game Time app, tickets to this upcoming Saturday's game against the Pelicans are $50. And that is the full price. That includes taxes, fees, all the things. $50 will get you in the door to this Saturday's game, Suns versus Pelicans here in Phoenix. If you were one of those people arguing in the chat about tickets being sold at higher rates here in Phoenix, this is your chance to get in on the action and go. And then we can do our own MVP chance for book. We could do our own whoever insert player name here sucks. We could make F whoever player here t-shirts too. We could just make this a whole fun thing.
What an elite transition.
One other thing to the Pelicans fans. Your arena is trash.
I mean, come on.
The Pelican Smoothie King arena is straight trash. All right. We've got a beautiful palace to basketball out here in Phoenix after they refurbished it. And you got whatever that dump is. So if you want to see a real basketball arena, fly your ass out here for next Saturday. You can watch your Pelicans in a good basketball arena.
Jeez.
But anyway, so the Game Time app is fantastic.
Maybe in Temecula.
It gets you up to 60% off your tickets when you buy last minute. Honestly, if you wait until Wednesday or Thursday, the tickets might even be a little bit cheaper than what they are right now. But remember, the best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description of this show. So if you're grabbing tickets on the Game Time app, make sure you click on that link before you buy your tickets. Anything else, you guys? Y'all are just so sad.
I love the city of New Orleans, too.
I'm trying to preach peace and love and kindness, and you're just like, let me just
are you though?
Let me tell you why your arena's dog shit.
Wait. No, Lindsay's not getting off the hook. She said that freaking Cafe Du Monde was mid.
I said that last year, and I still stand by it.
Yeah, that's more disrespectful than what Espo said about their arena.
Look, I've been looking
but that's to the whole city, not just the fan bases. And right now, it's just the fan bases that are beefing.
Look, my man Gerald's been gripping the chair tight tonight, right? And I knew I had to defend our good honor against some of these commenters by saying the reality of the situation. They play in a dump. That's it.
I mean, their arena's very old. It's kind of crumbling, but I don't think they can help that.
It's not their fault.
Maybe if they bought more tickets.
We had a really shitty arena for a long time, too, Espo.
Maybe if they bought more tickets when they were bad, they'd have more money to refurbish their arena.
Listen. I'm not going to talk about bad teams because we saw plenty of that in 2018, and this arena was not full at that point either. So, I think
actually love New Orleans, and I actually. I like Zion. He's a fun player.
Listen,
you guys got a fun team.
Honestly, at the end of the day, like they are a good team. They're one of the contenders in the West. Right now, they're the number 1 seed. You can't hate on what the Pels have done. Like they are a physical, solid team, and they have a little pop with Zion. They got great all around players and CJ McCollum and freaking Brandon Ingram. Like they got a great thing going. We just want to beat their ass, and we just lost twice to them in back-to-back games. I think this is the final game coming up, right, on Saturday. So it'll be the fourth of a 4-part series. Let's see if we win this one and even up the series. Either way, they've been pretty good games. They've been physical. They've been contested. There's been a little bit of chippiness, and that's what we love to see. So
New Orleans was low-key my favorite city that I got to
New
travel
Orleans
to.
is a
covering the
fantastic
NBA.
city.
The arena is a dump, but the city, I love that city.
They're fantastic. Like they were fantastic hosts for All-Star game. The city put on a great game and everything. So no real hate when it comes to New Orleans. And by the way, if your go-to is I'm fat, as you joke in the chat, congratulations, I own a mirror. I'm well aware.
Oh.
Also be respectful. Don't be a dick.
Whatever. Like it's not.
No, it's all right. If they're Pels fans and they come in and they're just talking shit, then we just silence them.
Yeah.
We will silence.
We do have a mute
You
button.
watch from the fucking bleachers.
All right. Well, at least it was a better game. We didn't win, but at least it was a better game. And we'll try again on Saturday. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you. The boys will have a show for you tomorrow at 3 p.m. So make sure to meet them right back here at the same place. If you can't hang out with us live, you can always listen wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at LindsaySmithAZ. You can follow Saul at Saul_Bookman. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget. And of course, you can follow Espo at Espo.
Espo ain't fat. He's just a little thick.
Look, New Orleans fans, your favorite player Zion. I thought you'd like me because I was fat. Ahoy, hoy.
Lindsay, Gerald, Espo. Saw past the ball, we here to turn up the tempo. Got to understand me, I'll always rep the family. Rally in the valley like Dan G, no plan B. Always on the job, my team move like the mob, turn the beat on.